Hello, and welcome to our pre-production and GitHub workshop. This is going to be done by Brian Ambrose and Ethan Weisenberg. I told him not to use the little essay, but he did. All right, here we go. Ethan, go ahead and bring us into it.
Pre-production and GitHub workshop. My name's Ethan. We're going to be going over the pre-production section first, and afterwards we're going to go through GitHub. So, what am I going to actually be talking about for this presentation? Um, First of all, I'm going to be talking a lot about the leadership and team roles, which could be in a team, foundational design. Oh, okay. Um, project management and specific topics like agile project management, Scrum, and scope and risk. Some useful software which will be good to use for your team, and some final suggestions. So, and talking about leadership and team roles, what even is a video game producer? Usually, the producer is the owner or major manager of the project. Uh, in this presentation, I'm mainly going to be talking about the producer as if they're the team lead also. This doesn't always this isn't always the same in video game development outside the club. Like, say if you have like an upper management sort of division and someone there would be team, but for our purposes we're going to be saying producer equals team lead. Usually the producer assembles and manages the team, leads the project in the right way and being able to get finished, sets the standards, um, so that the team can uh, go towards something to achieve. They're also the balancing point of creation, especially if your team has a lot of people who are giving ideas for specific sub teams. Um, and they're also the tipping point between disciplines and allows for they usually speak and know a lot of the basics of say art and programming and such, and communicates problems which sub teams are having, which needs to be known from to each other. Um, for some definite tasks, which the producer does, they hold meetings, they control the backlog, and they decide what method of product managing you want to have in your. The backlog we'll be talking about later, but in essence, is basically a to-do list for the team. And what about the product manager? The From a lot of what I was seeing, these two are very different. However, a lot of studios kind of vary in the definition of product manager and producer. But in essence, the product manager is the person who understands the priorities and capabilities of the game and does the outlining, the scheduling, the tracking of tasks, and they focus a lot on project scoping, assessing and mitigating risk, and does realistic thinking of the scope and design. There are many other leadership roles. Creative director is a big one, basically the lead, but they are also they're also the creator of the game concept and manages designers and artists. Most likely, if you're a team lead, you're probably going to be the producer, project manager, and creative director, which may seem to be a lot, especially if you are also planning to be like a lead engineer and art director or art director. Um, if this seems like too much, it's always good to have an assistant producer or dedicated project manager to help out with the team. But other than that, like I just said earlier, there is a lead engineer, which is the lead of the programming sub team. Usually, the foundational architect. So like they would be the one who has the GitHub set up, the one who starts the Unreal or Unity project, and sets the foundation. And they usually understand how the sub team, how all the programming um, pieces together in the end, and they also oversee performance targets. You probably don't have to worry about that much, but what that is basically is making sure that the game runs at a like an optimal state. So if you want specifically 60 frames, the lead engineer is going to make sure that's you get that. Art director is much the same, but for the art sub team, they uphold the art style and vision, and understands how the all the work from that sub team pieces together. So let's talking about the leadership roles. The typical roles which you'll see in a team would be stuff like programmers, artists, game designers, audio, and sometimes quality assurance. It is good when you're looking for specific roles, say especially for our artists, to say something, say more precisely what you want, because artists can. There is a lot of things which artists can do. So like concept art, character art, um, animators, that type of stuff. And it's good to say exactly what you want because someone might be specialized in something else, and it's very hard for someone to understand what you are expecting if you just say I need artists for my team. Game designers, most likely you're not going to get a dedicated game designer unless your game is very heavy in, say, narrative or level design, or has like a lot of bosses and needs a lot of gameplay design. Usually that's going to fit into, it's going to be handed down to people who already have other roles. And yeah, you won't necessarily need all of these roles to make your team work. Like say for you might need a networking engineer if you're doing something which has to do with multiplayer, or a rendering engineer or technical artist if you're doing something which requires a lot of shaders and is 3D. And as I was saying before, a lot of people can be multiple roles at once, and probably will be, since you were aiming for people to have around teams of 5 to 7. Quality assurance is a big example of this. You're most likely going to have people who are quality assurance and also say programming or artists, and or like people who you find outside the team, which are mainly just friends to fill out that role. Here's an example of team composition if everyone was like all the leadership roles were one person, and you can kind of see how um, people the roles direct um, work in leadership around the whole team. Your team's probably not going to look like this, though. Example: my team. Uh, I am the producer, project manager, and creative director, and I have my lead engineer also as assistant producer. And we usually look at all the all the stuff things ourselves. And also, you can see that I'm also doing a lot in design. The lead engineer is also doing specific stuff for the program sub team, and he's also doing stuff for design sub team. So yeah, your team composition might look very different. To find out who you actually need, it's good to list out what roles you'll need for the game in the beginning. So like if you know that your game is going to needs a lot of UI, get a UI artist, and so on and so forth. And then you would find these people, the people to fill out these roles, or if you already have people on your team, to see who would be interested in filling out those roles. It's also good to set a responsibility for each role so people are aware what they are in charge of when they are set up to be, say, a UI artist, like I said earlier. And once you've done that, it's good to see what is not being dealt by any role, so nothing is left untouched. All right, now we're going to move on to foundational design. And this is mainly talking about your game idea. For those who are team leads, you probably already have a pitch, but it's good to define what your game is, to either if you're looking for more people to join your game, your team, or and to the people in your team right now. And this is good because it keeps a creative direction focused, and it makes sure that everyone in the team understands what the goal is for the game, and it prevents um, scope or feature creep, which is when you start adding more and more features to the game because you think it'll oh yeah, when you add more and more features to the game, and it makes the amount of work which needs to be done um, longer. Well, yeah, longer, and it extends the practical day of when you can actually finish the game. So it's good to focus on essentials and keep things feasible within the environment you're in. A lot of what we're going to be talking about for foundational design is the basic design pillars, gameplay loops, feature sets, and elevator pitch. And it's best not to focus on documentation, a long documentation of the design. You could do like small sorts of documentation, but definitely not like page long documentation of what your idea is. I stumbled across this situation a few semesters ago. It did not help. Um, it will quickly become outdated, and it'll be harder for the team to actually understand the concept if they have to be looking through a lot of pages just to understand what the game is. So design pillars. These are usually the must-have elements in your game, and they work very well to be guideline um, for what what you want in the game. These are grand definitions of your game and not specific features nor hooks. It's good to aim for around 3 to 5 pillars. Um, Usually, a game which focuses on being too much won't have a strong core. Um, I'm gonna use an example for Destiny, 4 pillars. They actually have a bit more than 5. They have around 7. They publicly showed what pillars they had. I'm going to take 4 from their list. So some examples is that they aim to have a world players want to be in, um, a game where a bunch of fun, where there's a bunch of fun things to do, where the experience can be shared with others and is enjoyable by all skill levels. So yeah, these are very broad definitions, which will help in defining what you want. The gameplay loop is much more specific, though. It's always good to focus on the primary gameplay loop. And what this is basically what the player wants to achieve by second to second basis. It can range, like this is a general thing for second by second. Say for games like Civ, you're gonna have a gameplay loop which is much longer than second by second basis. Um, this is what's going to be fun and engaging. The main reason why people want to play your game, and it could be as simple as complex as you want. But it's always good to have that as the focus because this is basically your backbone for your game. You can have more gameplay loops. Usually, games will have around 3. So you would have the secondary gameplay loop, which would be what the player wants to get by a minute-to-minute basis, and then the tertiary gameplay loop, which is what someone would be what you want the player to be achieving by an hour by hour basis. And all these loops serve the primary loop overall. Um, Without the primary loop, your idea won't have a backbone. So a good example of this is the solo campaign for Halo. The primary gameplay loop would be as simple. You can call it as simple as shooting enemies and not dying. The secondary would be reaching the end of a level, and the tertiary would be completing the game overall. You can add more loops to your game. It doesn't have to be limited by the 3. Um, for the campaign of Halo, you can add more by having all these difficulty settings, having time and points high scores, and a bunch of other things which you can add to the game. And you can even alterate the loop. Um, Talking about Halo again, they have all sorts of different game modes outside of campaign, like the actual matchmaking, forge, firefight, custom games, which all uses a sort of altered version of the primary gameplay loop, but overall it's just shooting enemies and not dying. Unless you want to make chess and forge, but that's something which the player would want to do. But it all uses the alteration of the primary gameplay loop and stacks and alters the secondary and tertiary gameplay loop. But it all focuses on the a similar primary loop. So now there's also a feature list and a control and scope. So the features list is the list of all the major elements of your game. This is probably going to be the most specific out of everything, which you're going to have for foundational design. Um, it's going to contain elements regardless of the importance to the end user. So, like, say, if you have something which you want to have specifically um, about something about the engine, and you can add that to the features list. Um, the features list will help guide the producer and project manager for decision making and outlining whatever is necessary for the completion of the game. It also helps define what matters most of each feature. So, like, you can ask yourself the question, um, why am I adding this feature? And am I adding it because it will enhance the main gameplay loop? You definitely don't want to add any features which disrupts the main loop, or if it disrupts like the fun of the game which you're trying to find. Um, for controlling scope, it's the scope is going to be the relative costs of each feature in the game, and it's good to control the scope what um to what your team size is, what your team capacity is, which is like what the days which your team has available to actually work on the game, and the time allocated for development. So like the time for time allocated for development, example for us would be the time till the showcase. And it's good to make scope estimates for your tasks so you know how long things will take till they're finished. We'll talk more of this in project management at near the end of it, but it's good to mention this for the foundational design so you don't make something too out of your which can't really be achieved by the team. Right, and then we have the elevator pitch, which is what an elevator pitch basically encompasses everything which we mentioned before: the design pillars, the loops, and the features list. And this allows your ideas to be communicated um, more efficiently to others. And again, it makes it more understandable by your team. And this is going to be what the very picture basically contains what makes your game fun, what makes it exciting and interesting. You can sum in a few sentences, and it's supposed to be short and simple. Optionally, you can make something called an X statement, which is basically breaking it down further into a single sentence, but you don't have to do that. Again, it's good just to have the elevator pitch. So for the for the game overall, it's good to keep note you um that you are trying to make something which the player is gonna want to have fun with. So it's good to know how to find the fun of what of the game. So it's good to implement the basics of what your design is in the prototyping phase and experiment a lot with what you have, making sure the gameplay loop works and is fun and engaging. Um, and once you have that down, then you can start iterating with complexity after. This allows for a lot of the chaos in game development to be located in the beginning, when all the ideas come about and when you decide, hey, maybe this will be good for our game, so on and so forth. And it's good not to have that be found at the end because that's how crunch usually occurs by having a bunch of ideas pop at the end which you want to add into your game, and that extends the amount of work which you have to do for to finish the game. Um, one quick note also for a prototype for a prototype and experiment idea, it's good to focus on the three C's: the for camera, control, and character. These are usually the things which the player is always going to be looking at, and it creates a solid foundation once you focus on having these three things um, good for the prototyping phase. All right, so now we're going to be talking about the actual product management part of video game development, and we're just going to do a short intro. Um, what I'll be focused on mostly for this presentation is going to be Agile, which is a project management style with a Scrum framework. And this aligns closest to video game development, mainly because it allows for a consistent evaluation of the project and allows for the team to find the fun from find the fun for the gameplay loop. You can choose different project management methods. However, I'm going to be mentioning some other ones like waterfall, and you can make a hybrid system of um, between waterfall and agile, depending on what you find useful for the team. So just briefly mentioning waterfall. Waterfall is a very robust system, and it builds a lot on phases. However, it's very hard to return to previous phases, and it folds everything onto a high risk release and has strict critical paths. Um, for the graphs on top, the first one would be example waterfall. Second would be agile. And agile is more of an anti-fragile system, which can take a lot of stress. However, is much more flexible. It allows for constant opportunity to return to old phases, and it allows for a team to be more flexible if dependencies are incomplete. What dependencies are is, say, let's take for example, you're trying to have a character design and have that be programmed in. If the the design for like how the character moves and how they do combat is incomplete, the programmers can't do anything for actually putting that in because into the game because they don't know what it's going to be. So that would be an example of dependence. Um, example of traditional development plans would be the traditional path where you have design, pre-production, production, or you can call it full development, alpha and beta. Most of the time, development would be during the production phase, and yeah, this would be um, how a general game would go for development. Uh, there's also other examples of development plans, such as this one for Agile. I think this one was from a uh, some games developed by Nintendo of Japan, where rather than having the traditional pre-production, production, post-production phases, they would have an overall exploration phase, where at this point this is where the developers see what is fun, test out whatever they want to do during prototyping phase, and get a solid idea off of that. And then after that would be a phase of emergence where they build upon the game elements, which were decided in exploration phase, and then another phase of exploitation, where once they have everything, they add on features by sorry, hold up. They add features which doesn't disrupt the current game elements which are already in there. So like something which doesn't require a full redesign of something would be what they would add during the exploitation. Um, So now we're going to get into the actual agile, defining what agile project management is, and what they have in agile is, for example, is these what they have epics, stories, and themes. And what these are, they're basically they break down milestones into smaller goals and tasks and make it more comprehensible to the. So what they have for these would be the stories and tasks, which are short requirements for whatever you're trying to make. So like a story would be written in perspective of an end user. For example, as a player, I'd want to do this so that I can do this. So in order, player, the need, and the purpose. Tasks are smaller, more distinct pieces of work. If you want to try to for getting something more, uh, sorry, hold up, something more distinctive done, then you'll label as a task. These are made up of subtasks, which are smaller tasks, which are sorry, made up of subtasks, which is what each sub team will be in charge of. Okay. Yeah, sorry if I'm stuttering a lot. Oh, I skipped the side of it. Example of how subtasks are in relevance to the stories task would be the one diagram which I have on the top right, which would be, say you're trying to make a character trait screen, which you can see in the Fallout, and you can write this down as a player, I want to access a trait screen at the start of the game so I can create a character. This will require several things done, such as like an art. You'll need them to create trait screen, and also icons and fonts for the trait screen. For programming, you'll need them UI scripts for it, and for design, you'll need to actually say what's going to be on that trait screen. So like skills, traits, how those affect health points and action points, etc. With all this are epics, which are large bodies of work that can be broken down into stories, and initiatives, which is the next step above, which is the collections of epics that drive toward a common goal. There are also themes, which are large focus areas that span the organization. They're not as necessary as everything what you just said, but it's good to take note if you're interested in categorizing everything. So examples of um, all these subtask stories, epics, and initiatives would be, say, if you want to have a story which is create a loopable crate that can be opened. Um, Subtasks for that would include designing the system, making art assets for the crate which needs to be opened, programming the lootable object itself, and creating audio files for it being open. And oh, oh, sorry. Did anyone have any questions about what I've been saying so far? Okay. Has any questions right now? All right. Sorry if I'm going too fast or anything like that. So continuing what I was saying, um, for a story which is for creating lootable crates that can be opened, that would fit into an epic, such as making the environment more interactable or lootable, which can fit into the initiative of completing the environment for your game, or say finishing the first level. This is the initiatives, the goals which you have for the initiatives, would mainly be determined by um, your development plan, which I was mentioning earlier, which is like if you want to stick to something strictly pre-production, production, post-production, or something which is more like um, having an exploration phase, having a and having an exploitation phase. That would largely control what you have for your initiatives. Um, for agile project management, you're probably going to oh, you're probably going to have a backlog, which is like I said earlier, is your to-do list, and this is going to be where you put um, all the tasks which need to be done for the game and for it to. You can take a lot of the you can make a lot of the task list based off of your features list, which you made earlier. Um, sorry, hold up. This is largely the producer's responsibility. This is also the root of crunch, where say if the backlog cannot be finished in time, um, the team has to start working more near the end of production, and we definitely don't want that. Alternatively, you can minimize the scope um, at the end, but that's probably going to cause a lot of problems to your original design. So overall, it's good to organize your backlog for it to not take up too much time. Uh, for when you're making the backlog, sorry, it's good to know that it's impossible to know all the work which you need to have done for the game. So chasing for accuracy usually gives diminishing returns. It's good to just give enough information for the team to adapt to what needs to be done for the game. Any questions so far? Um, yeah, yeah, it would be. That's oh. This is kind of going back to what we were just talking about before for epic stories. Um, if you want to have something like I said here, create a lootable crate. That could be you can sort that into like the category of an epic with making the whole environment interactive, and then you can continue to make that into a category, which would be the initial. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the main reason for all of this is just so you can reduce a grand task into something more understandable. So now let's move on. Um, you can also have roadmaps, which are basically the full schedule of what you're going to be doing for the game. These are going to be composed of the initiatives, which I was talking about before, and this includes these initiatives, like I said before, will break down to epic stories and subtasks. This making a roadmap makes it so you can visualize dependencies. So, like what task is required to go on to the next task, allows you to monitor the project process. Sorry, I don't know what I just said. Monitor the project progress is what I meant to say. Um, and again, it breaks down the project into manageable pieces of work. Um, for example, of a roadmap, you can make a Gantt chart, which is what the image is in the top right, where you have all the tasks split up by sub teams and show what you need to have done uh, before move on to your next task. All right, so now we're also going to talk about workflow, and this is basically the path taken by your development to get a task ready or uh, ready to finish. So usually you can have a workflow like this. Um, you have a task which needs to be done. It does work which hasn't been started. Um, you can move this on to being under in progress, which is work which is currently being looked at, and then move on to review, which is work which needs to be well reviewed by someone, probably the producer or whoever has to say like our assets, whoever does bring it into the game, the review to see if it went in correctly, and then you'll bring it to done, which is when the work is fully completed. It's, the team's definition of done, which is usually it's ready for the alpha. Some subteams can have additional states within the workflow. So, say for programming, you can have a waiting QA or ready to merge. All right, so that was basics for Agile. Now we're going to talk about Scrum, which is a much smaller part of what we're going to be talking about. The main part of Scrum is that it uses sprints, which which are small iterations of work time, which the team works with. So sprints, like I was saying, these would be short time box periods, which are defined by objective or a milestone, which are further defined by your development plan. As an example, get the first level finished, and you would have the team complete a set amount of issues during sprint, usually 2 epics, and this lasts from 1 week to 4 week. It depends on how you want to organize it. Like you can have a sprint end whenever you have a team meeting, so everyone can go over everything which has happened um, for the week. Sprints usually start with sprint planning and ends with sprint retrospective, which are these are just small meetings, uh, which I'll be talking about in the next slide. And you just continue to repeat the cycle till the project completion. What is sprint planning? Sprint planning is basically when you ask your team, what work can we get done in the sprint, and how will the chosen work get done? And during this time, the producer will discuss objectives with the team, such as and add issues from the project backlog, sprint backlog, which is just the to-do list for during the sprint. Usually, I would suggest doing an hour planning per 1 week of sprint. You don't want to go um, too much over that time limit, or if you're going to be adding a lot of things, you're going to be overthinking a lot. To go to just simple. This continues on to daily scrum, which is basically the time in the sprint where you're going to start working, which is going to be the majority of the sprint. The sprint retrospective is going to occur at the end of the sprint, and this is when you're going to discuss with your team what works, what doesn't, and see how you can fix that. Some examples would be, say, there was a problem with the team planning, and you would have to find out how you can get this fixed. Sorry, or it can be something which is core to the game itself, such as the gameplay loop isn't fun, and you would have to try to redesign your gameplay. And that's the main core of Scrum. Is there any questions? Okay.
Is Scrum
Oh,
like part of Agile?
okay. So that's a good question. So Agile, all right, start over. Scrum is a framework for Agile. So there's a lot of frameworks. Another example would be Kanban, which I think the premise of that is, say you have categories. So you have like something which is to do, and one is in progress, and one is done, and you'll be bringing tasks from each of those cards. It's basically focuses on the workflow and makes that the planning. Um, Sorry, did I explain that well or not?
Oh yeah, sort of. So is it like it's a part of like a separate framework from Sprint. From Agile, right? So Agile is its own framework, and then Scrum is its own as well.
Uh, I know places like Atlassian, which is the people who run Jira, they consider it like a frame of mind. I wouldn't go as far to say that, but it's kind of just it's the backbone of what you're going to be what you're planning. So like for waterfall, a lot of their stuff is like building off of phases, and
Mm-hmm.
agile is trying to go through things in cycles. And
Oh,
then
okay.
Scrum is a framework added on to agile. So like the big thing about Scrum is the sprints, which is basically just defining everything into like it defines that the work's going to be done within. Sorry if I didn't answer that question that well.
No, no,
I get
that
it?
was okay.
Okay.
So it's like so scrums are like 15-minute like meetings you have like with the group or something.
Uh, you're asking about Scrum entirely?
Yeah.
Um, Not exactly. The 15-minute means would be the sprint planning. So like the plan, like a planning or like a retro. Um, Scrum is just the framework which includes these sprints, and the sprints is going to be sorry, um, I know it's hard to I don't know why it's being hard to explain. Um, this, all right, let me start from the beginning. So Scrum is a framework of Agile, and Scrum basically defines like so yeah, it's a framework. Sorry, it's a framework and okay. Um, Framework is just like the actual system which you're going to be using um for Agile. So like as I was mentioning earlier, Kanban uses a different system, which is just like bringing things over with cards. Scrum would be having the cycles, and you would go of cycles of work days or not. Yeah, work. So it's like let's use a week as an example. You would have a week of sprint, have everyone get work done during that sprint, and then see what you have done at the end of the week and decide what you need to have done within the next. And it's like a system which isn't designed from the like designed from beginning to start, because usually you might come across a lot of instances where you need to iterate on things or change up designs. Um, that's the main reason for sprints. So you're not just locked in to a specific design. All right. Did that?
Yeah, that made sense. Thank you so much.
Okay. I'm sorry that was such a big problem for me to explain.
No, no, no. I think it's a hard topic to explain. I would
Okay.
imagine.
All right. Now for talking about the last topic in product management, we're going to talk about scope and risk. We mentioned this earlier. For scope, this is the required work for a feature in Workdays, and it's usually broken down by all the members which need to be done, which are needed for the feature to be done, and these estimates are made per discipline, and this helps in with this controls how you're going to do task estimates, which are general estimations for when the task will be done. You can make estimations many ways. You can do traditional time units. So like this will take like 2 days to finish. This will take 24 20 hours to finish. You can use story points also, which are it's a more arbitrary point system. Like you can say that this task takes like is like one story point, which will translate to taking like 5 hours out of your day or something like that. And you can make it range 0.5 to 100. That depends on how you want to do it for your team. And you can also just resort to traditional difficulty statement. So this task is hard, this task is easy, stuff like that. Um, for for actually finding out if people can do tasks which you put into your scope, it's good to calculate, find out what your team capacity is. And what team capacity is the time allocated by your team members for a feature. Um, a good way to find this is detailing a staffing plan, which is basically saying when can your developers start work on a feature and when will when will they not be able to. Um, and from both the scope and capacity, you can make the scope capacity. A bit confusing, but what this is just the total capacity divided by total scope. Um, from the example, from the diagram which you have, you can see that, say for example, if you have a scope of 32 days, and a capacity of 30 days, you'll end up with a scope capacity of 107%. You do not want this because this means that the amount of days which is required for the feature is longer than how much time the developers can actually um, put for working on this. So you definitely don't want something above 100%. Um, for um, for us as a club, it's good to try to aim for something underneath 80%, as mainly because people have school, people have work. There's a lot of midterms and big tests coming up, and you want to give a lot of time for people to work around. Um, yeah, a lot of time for your team to work around. So, say for art, um, you have features which you think might take around 24 days to make. Um, it's good to have a capacity over that. So, like for this instance, the art team has 30 days available. This allows for a lot of wiggle room for your developers to actually work on the project and not have to worry about um, not having enough time for school and everything. And overall, finding the scope capacity allows for a better flowchart and backlog, and you don't have to worry about overworking your team members, which is very big. All right, now we move on to debt and risk management. Um, Debt for a game is you can sum it up as when this occurs when you push back features and issues, and it makes things harder to focus on for fixing and finding issues. This can all get summed up into the shipping or showcase debt, which causes if you have a lot of showcase debt, this end up causing this ended up cause sorry, let me rephrase that or restate this. So this all sums up in the shipping slash showcase debt, which can cause a lot of chaos at the alpha slash beta stage or exploitation stage, where you end up having to finish a bunch of features and issues at the end of development, but you don't have enough time. And this again is going to cause a lot of crunch, and this is what you don't want. Um, some good debt reduction practices would be to say for your programming team to polish the game once in a while, say make a magazine demo, um, and seeing if your game runs well. You, one option which you can have is like maybe every other day you can have a small instance of a polishing, like maybe just like 10 minutes, check if there's anything which you can fix and improve on it, and then like bi-weekly you can have more larger scale events where you look more into your game to polish everything, and this will reduce how much problems you'll have later in the game. Like it'll reduce the amount of bugs which you'll probably find at the end of the game, end of development. Sorry. Risks are risks are anything which can disrupt the cost, duration, or quality of your product. Um, and it's good to have a risk management plan. So, example of this would be um, you going over with your team to identify any risks which can come about. So let's take example for a midterm, um, and seeing how much will this impact um, someone's time which they can have for the project, and yeah, find the root cause of whatever's going to cause this risk. We just went over that, and then have a trigger condition. So like you can have a day to know when this risk becomes a problem. Say like um, for the example of the midterm, uh, have a test day a few days before to see if your member is going to have to spend a lot of time studying for that midterm. Have the day to know if you need to have a mitigation strategy, which is whatever you're going to do against that risk. So maybe just see if you can have another team member um, do the work rather than having um, the person who's taking the midterm. If And if this proves to not be a problem, like they have the midterm all studied already, do another evaluation to see if there's any other risk which you've missed before. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Was that all understandable? Yeah. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that I'm not that I'm not just saying nonsense to people. So now we're going to get to the software, which you can use for your uh, game project. So types of software which is good to have would be, of course, the task management software. Examples being Trello, Jira, and Notion. A communication software like Discord, which we're all using right now, unless you're watching this in the future. Um, a code review and repo management software such as Github, which will be gone over with Brian later, and an asset storage software, which is something like Google Drive or Dropbox. So one example, hold up. Sorry. I'm mainly going to be going over task management software. As I said earlier, Brian's going to be going over GitHub. I think everyone has used Google Drive or Dropbox enough to understand how that works. And then I'm just going to have a little thing to talk about for Discord for setting up a server. Okay. So Trello is a very versatile project management software which you can use. It streamlines a lot of task management into one page, and it's all drag and drop. Um, for this, you can create a task and events individually by card, and you can color code them. You can put due dates on them. You can add descriptions, um, checklists, so on and so forth, and even set reminders for people. This is great if all you care about is assigning tasks and just want to have everything on the screen so people can see it, and it's completely free. Uh, yeah. Is there any questions about Trello? Sorry. Went to the page. Um, just sort of introduction. I feel like the UI for Trello is yeah. I mean, what you're looking at is basically the UI. The top one is I think it was an example which they have on Trello. The bottom one is an example from my team from last semester. You might notice that all the stuff is outdated, and that's because it's from last semester. But yeah, you have a lot of control with how the cards look. Like on mine, I had a bunch of headers and separated it by subteams and by specific roles. Yeah.
Does Trello allow you to assign certain cards to people?
Yes, it does. Like well, I guess on both of them, you can see that there's little icons. Those
Mhm.
would be the people which you assigned a card to, and it'll message them when something's about to be due if you have a due date for them. Is there any other questions?
Is how do I guess on the like user side or the person that has the card, like let's say for production design,
Mhm.
do they like do like a check mark or something when it's done?
Oh, that would be good to explain. Sorry. So usually everything's categorized in a list, as you see there. Usually you have a dedicated list for things which are done, and you'll just drag it there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You could optionally, like, if it has a checklist or a due date, you can just click on them to say if you're done or not, and it'll go green. But it's also good to just have a list where you can drop it down to signify that's done. Any other questions? All right. So now I'm going to be talking about Jira, which is a bit more complex. These are they're Jira is free. However, it's only free for like 10 members and less, and it comes with Confluence or Jira Service Management. I'm not sure much about Jira Service Management because it didn't seem like it applied much to video game development, but I know a bit about Confluence, which I'll talk about in a bit. So Jira is much more based off of Scrum and Agile project management, which I was going before. Um, all you need to do is create an account and create a Scrum project. This will be based off of the preset which they had for software. Yes, for software projects. What Jira has, they have a roadmap and a backlog. Here's I made some examples, example of a Jira project, and sent some pictures here. But yeah, you can have a roadmap for showing when things will get done, what are some dependencies for what needs to be done before something else can. And in the backlog, you can assign epics and stories there, and have sprints, create sprints from there. Jira also has a sprint board, so like when you start a sprint, it'll say what tasks are um, need to be done during the sprint. This is much more like Trello, that part in particular. And for this will outline your workflow. Sorry if I'm stuttering a bit. So you can create a workflow per task, and here I have example on the pictures where you can have a task flow of when a project first gets when a issue first gets introduced to the project, it'll start in to do, and you can drag it to in progress, review, and then done, and it will signify it as done. You can do all that within Jira. Jira also offers reports, like the burnup report or a velocity report, just to see how your team's doing. They have a source control management link, so you can connect GitHub directly to Jira. They also have their own thing called Bitbucket. I didn't really play around with that much, but I think it works similarly to GitHub Kraken or Desktop, if you're familiar with that. They also have Confluence project boards, which is a bit like their own version of Google Drive. You can start up a bunch of documents in there. You can have meeting notes. You can have meeting notes in them. Staffing pages, like team staffing lists on there, and keep it directly in Jira. And you can have custom links on it, like you can, if you have a Google Drive where you store all your art assets or audio assets, you can just link it directly onto Jira, and you just click it and it'll pop up a link, and that's pretty nice. There's other features which you can turn on and turn off, like there's some stuff like development and on call. I didn't think that was good to talk about right now, but like it's not essential for your team, but they're there if you want to look into it. Is there any questions for Jira? Nope. All right. That's live? Okay. um, so some honorable mentions for project management software. Notion is also a good one, which is free, and it's much more like a in between Trello and Jira. It's much more it's simpler, but you do need to know how to set up everything. From what I'm aware, it doesn't give you a lot for setting things up. Yeah, it has much more freedom for having your own workspaces and is actually become more popular. It's free, and I heard that there's also a student premium account, which was it if you have a student. Also for Atlassian, who is also Atlassian created Jira and also owns Trello, but didn't make Trello. They have a bunch of other things in their suite. Like I mentioned earlier, there's Bitbucket, but there's a lot of other things which might help for which you might think will help for the project. And there's many other development software out there. Sorry, project management software out there. Stuff like Windows projects. Not Windows, Microsoft project. But those are you need to pay in order to use those. So I'm mainly suggesting ones which you can use for free. And then Discord. We're all using Discord right now, so I'm sure a lot of people know how to use it. But for setting up a server in particular, they're usually easy to set up, but it's good to have a bunch of text and video channels for everyone. So like you would have your main channel, which will contain your announcement, general and off-topic channels, text channels. You would have a lead and management channels where you can have something specifically for the leads in case any problems come up. I also personally have a Discord backlog um, where I just throw a bunch of tasks, which I think, oh, I should remember this in there. Example of my backlog would be the first picture on the top left, where I just at what role needs to do something, and I'll remember for later. Um, you also should have meeting channels for setting up weekly meetings, and then have a little talk main channel for people who can't use a mic at the moment. And then it's good to have a scheduling channel, and say like sorry, hold up. It's good to have a scheduling channel for people to send, say, their email and their availability within a week, so that you can schedule tasks later on and invite people to, say, if you have a Google Drive, invite them all with the email. And then it's good to have sub-team channels per sub-team. So like for programming, you can have a general programming chat, or like a log of what people have finished. Um, yeah. Um, it's also good to have roles for everyone. As you can see, I have a very long list of roles. You don't necessarily need to have that long list, but it's good to have things based off of sub-team. Like alternatively, you can just have you can just have programming instead of just having AI programming, gameplay programming, etc. I just have that so people know what roles they're assigned to, and so I can add stuff specifically. But you can just streamline the whole thing into a few roles. Is there any questions about sign up a Discord? No? Okay. All right. And some final suggestions. Oh, all right. Why, of course. Why wouldn't you? All right. Great question there.
What's Discord?
Was Discord? Why I don't know. What are we in right now?
Discord's the dude from My Little Pony, was that?
Oh, you're right.
We're all on Skype right now.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought this was Zoom.
This is the Matrix.
I'll stay in the
You have
coma.
to let us
All
go.
right.
The accident wasn't your fault.
I shouldn't have taken that pill.
All right. Moving on to final suggestions, which I have. This will be fairly short, but one good thing is to aim to make an environment where developers can thrive. So one good way of doing this is focusing on flow, which is flow is when your team is completely engaged creatively in the work. So it's good to do to control this flow by giving tasks which aren't too easy or too hard depending on skill level, and good to balance difficulties based off of developer skill. It's also good to account for school and school and work schedules. Sorry about that. And make sure you're not giving someone too much. Another thing which helps create a good environment is to enforce trust within your team. And to do this, it's good to focus on accountability and results rather than metrics, like not You shouldn't be focused on how much bugs someone got rid of in your project, but like the effort which your programmers and artists and etc. are doing for your team. After all, they're all doing it solely for getting the project done. Like no payment incentives or anything. It's good not to force people to work at certain times. Again, this echoes crunch, and um, that makes it where a lot of your team will probably lose trust in you, just to get the project done. And it's good to show that you're committed to the project and care about it. To show that you're doing a lot of announcements and talking to a lot of people rather than just kind of having people do their own thing. Um, that doesn't mean you should be looking over every bit of progress which is happening in your team. It's just that show that you are there and working with everyone. And usually, if you don't have good trust, you end up with poor results, and developers lose care in the project, and you'll probably not end up with a good game, or not maybe not even a game at the end. The example which I have up top for a pyramid is a pyramid of like sorry, hold up. The main reasons why teams fail. So, like in the very bottom, you can see absence of trust is a pretty strong one for reasons why a team would probably fail. Continuing up with that would be fear of conflict, lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and inattention to results. And a lot of what I said previously is aimed to not have that happen in your team. Oh, skip the page. So overall, remember that you are making a game and that you're making something which will be fun or interesting or something which you to the player or something which you've really wanted to make for a while, or something which is like something which you want to make in order to have more experience in making what you want later. Um, Try not to treat this as like a bog standard project, and don't just work to get rid of your responsibility for the project. Yeah, just good to keep in mind that this is your game concept which you're making. And of course, it's good to find the fun. Find a good gameplay loop and a good foundation. And don't be afraid to alter your original concept if things aren't working out for when you're actually testing it. And overall, this is a student project. You don't have to treat it like a job. And on a final note, I'm going to talk about keeping your project afloat. So usually at the beginning of the project, this is where you have all of your enthusiasm. However, as development time goes on towards the middle, this is when your enthusiasm usually falls. Enthusiasm and energy, and where a lot of self-doubt creeps in. In order to get through this, you're going to need a lot of willpower and self-discipline. Doing as much work you can in one day would be a good example of the fastest way to burnout. And if you can't get a lot of work done in one day, stop and pace yourself, and just keep all the energy which you had for that day for the next day, and things work easier. Again, with self-discipline. It's also good to try to work often, not necessarily hard every day, but like say try to work every other day, and it doesn't have to be a lot of work. You just need to get something done which is considered progress. So like even one stroke for an art asset or one line of code for programming is enough to get some progress and to um, keep you interested in creating the game, and not end up like, say if you miss a day, it's just going to make it easier for you to skip more and more days till you basically have forgotten the project. And that's my presentation. Is there any other questions? Oh, thank you, Bill. No, I guess so. I felt like I was stuttering every other slide.
Do you, since we still kind of have time, do you want to go through like a quick demo of like Trello maybe?
um, sure. Let me turn off the stream real quick though. Let me see if I can get Trello. Create a new board. All right. Try this. Here you go. Everything going through? All right, so here's an example of just a blank Trello page. They do have some presets, but I'm going to start with this. So you can add tasks into Trello. So by adding, there we go. Let's say there's a to-do list. You can add tasks by adding it like that. So you can have to-do list. You can have in progress, review, done. And you can start off with something simple as that. By the way, it tracks everything in activity if you want to know what's going on. And then you can, for each list, you can add a card like this, and you can, this will basically be your task. So you can task 1, task 2, and so on and so forth. And you can do it many ways. I was mentioning briefly about Kanban. If you want to make a Trello work for Kanban, a lot of it works like you have a full list of to-do tasks, and then you'll move it on from that to in progress, to review, and it's a done. That's a lot of how Kanban works. And I was saying earlier, Scrum works more in a with sprints, where it's probably you're going to have a long to-do list, and then you're going to have a sprint, and then that's when you move things to the sprint, and then try to get that done within the sprint, within the week, and then get that to done if they are finished. Yeah, you can organize this as however you want. What I did for my previous one is that I separated all into sub teams. So like you can have our to-do list. Actually, our to-do. And you can organize everything into stuff like that. You can even make lists which aren't even for tasks. So like you can do something like major events, which is also something which I did, and you can mark up when pre-production ends, when production ends, when post-production ends. And you can highlight, you can do a lot with one card. You can add a description, you can add members. I only have me, so let's add me. Jay, you can add members, you can add labels. One thing which I did, you can, hold up, you can make it either only the top of the screen or the whole screen. Actually, wait. My apologies, I'm thinking of something else. But yeah, you can add labels to organize things into colors. You can have checklists. Have item 1, item 2, start dates, due dates. So let's say 26, and then you can set what day you want for the reminder to be sent to someone. And then it's gonna have a due date here. And you can check when it's done, and it'll show up here. Same thing with the checklist. If it's the day of, and you're if it's already due, it's going to end up being red. Well, not right now, overdue. And then if it's really late, it's going to end up as a end up more pink-like, saying that you really messed this due date. You can do attachments, you can do covers. This is what I was talking about before. Sorry, I was messing it up. But you can have like a top theme there, or make it the whole card. Something which I also did for my Trello is that I just made a card specifically for the whole list, so it was easier for everyone to see. So like our to do, I made it look something like this so that people can see it easier. I color coded everything to be for each subteam. And yeah, not that one. A lot of how Trello works overall is like when you get something finally finished. Oh yeah, it says due soon when it's turns yellow when it's due soon. Things are done, you can put it over to done, and then usually this list will just be full of what your team finally finished. I know that there's some programs which allows you to add like icons when things are done, like a check marker, and yeah, you can invite people through email. They will have to create an account, but it's pretty simple to invite people. Is there any questions about Trello? No? Okay. Is there anything else which anyone would like to go through? No? Okay. I think we can wrap it up then for pre-production and move on to our intermission to our GitHub section. I think I'm not sure. Let me see how okay.